Kia ora te whānau a iho karaiti ko Andrew Doubleday ho. Today we're looking at the Gospel text for Sunday the 10th of September 2023. It's Matthew chapter 18 verses 15 through to 20. If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. I want to repeat verse 15, the first verse. If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the 2 of you are alone. There is a question about the words against you. About half of translations, including modern ones, include it and half don't. They all invariably carry a footnote, and it will be something like ancient texts include or exclude against you. I've noticed that my daily read translation of decades, the NIV, has actually switched. At the beginning, it started with sins against you. If you look it up now, it excludes against you with the exclusion footnote. So an equal number of biblical translation scholars omit these words, and an equal number include them. We note that the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version, which is the version I use for these talks because it's the version most commonly used in mainline denominations, continues to include the words against you. But if we took them out, it might then read, if another member of the church sins, go and point out the fault where the 2 of you are alone, which I'm sure you'll agree is quite different. In the one where they sin against you, you appear to be the aggrieved party. In the other, where they simply sin, you appear to be a busybody. So which is right? Well, they both are. And it's useful having the tension because it points to something deeper. We don't need to choose one over the other. They can both be correct and applicable. What the exclusion does, so that it simply reads, if another member of the church sins and goes and point out the fault, is it raises the question for us. What was Jesus thinking? What was his intent? From a contemporary point of view, it makes Jesus seem like a judgmental busybody who needs to mind his own business. Interesting, eh? Yet this is just another example of how we intend to interpret Scripture through the eyes of the fall, through the eyes of fear. This is our stuff that is reacting, our stuff that is coming to the surface. Yet in both cases, I want to suggest we're invited to interpret through the eyes of love, which give us quite a different view, quite a different outcome. The clue is already there in the way that Jesus approaches the problem. First he says, go alone. Why? Because unless going alone is unsafe, and for some it could be, we'll talk about that in a moment, it gives the greatest possibility of success. So let's just deal with the safety issue. If one fears physical harm, or fears later accusations of inappropriate behaviour, both of which are possible, It might be mitigated by meeting in a public place, like a cafe over a coffee, or a busy park, somewhere where the two can be both alone and yet clearly observed by others. But why go alone at all? Why is this so important? Why does Jesus put it first? Because the goal is restoration of relationship. And when we take the words against you out, the goal is also the restoration of a person. If another member of the church sins, go and point out the fault. The whole point is restoration. It's the only point. There can be only one motivation here: love. Do you love the person enough to be able to face them? To be able to grieve over the damage that they are doing, first of all to themselves. Either way, whether against you is included or not, there is only one goal: restoration of the person and of relationships. This is pointed to in this process, one-on-one first. But why? Because it's the least confronting. It shows a willingness to be vulnerable. It has the greatest potential for showing humility and love. Now, of course, you could still go in with all guns blazing, full of self-righteousness, accusation and rage. This is not what Jesus is talking about. Remember, the objective is restoration. And that can only happen when love drives the process. One-on-one, in a spirit of gentleness and kindness, has the least likelihood of tipping the shame button, where the other will double down and defend themselves and back into their corner. And unless you're ready to be fully and lovingly present, even through tears, you reach out to the other, with the only objective being their full restoration. If there is a hint of punitiveness within you, perhaps it's better not to start at all. You may not be ready and are potentially setting up the encounter for failure. You see, the person needs to know that you love them, that you care about them and about what happens to them. It may be that having hard conversations are best framed in the context of a walk, where you can stroll side by side through a public park together. It's less confrontational. It has more of a sense that we're walking together, seeking to solve a problem, which we are, rather than sitting across from one another in a more adversarial role. Because unless your eyes radiate love, kindness, tenderness for the other, this could very easily go south. This is why I'm convinced that Jesus starts with the process in the one-on-one mode. Every level we go to beyond this reduces the possibilities of success, yet they must be attempted. Sometimes it may be necessary to ask the person to withdraw from church. This does two things. It protects the body from potentially abusive behaviour, but it also reinforces to the person that the behaviour is unacceptable and damaging to themselves and to others. It's a last-ditch action to see if they will come to themselves and seek a pathway to restoration. I've never had to do this. I've never actually gone beyond the first level. I may have a couple of times. We've gone to 2, yeah. Only a couple of times. That's not to say that all my relationship tensions have been resolved. They haven't. I became acutely aware as I was preparing this, and even as I'm giving this message now, that there are still relationships in my own life that remain fractured. The truth is, I'm not always the easiest person to be with. And I currently don't see a pathway for repair. And there will be fractured relationships that I'm not aware of. People that I have hurt along the way and have no opportunity for restoration because I don't know who they are. I discovered this a few years back, that there was someone I'd deeply hurt 25 years earlier, and I didn't have a clue. He was still bearing the pain and had the scars to prove it. My prayer is that the Lord will open pathways for restoration before I finally hang up my clogs. After all, as we pass from this life into eternity, there are going to be those that we could end up spending a lot of time with. It's better to get it sorted this side of the grave, if at all possible. Amen. God bless you.